To move the motion, I call the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I beg to move the motion on the order paper in my name and that of my right honourable friends. That motion confronts every member of this House with a clear and simple opportunity. A chance to vote for a general election that will secure the strong and stable leadership the country needs to see us through Brexit and beyond. It invites each one of us to do the right thing for Britain and to vote for an election that is in our country's national interest. My priority when I became Prime Minister was to provide the country with economic certainty, a clear vision and strong leadership after the long and passionately fought referendum campaign. This government has delivered on those priorities. Despite...
In the time-honoured fashion, my right honourable friend has called this election in what she considers and I consider to be the national interest at this moment. It will be a brave man or woman who votes against this motion, and therefore the Fixed Term Parliament Act is seen to be an emperor without clothes. It serves no purpose. Many of us have questioned it for many years. Will the first line of our be in our manifesto to scrap it?
Well, my honourable friend is trying to tempt me down a road. What is clear is that the Fixed Term Parliaments Act does give us an opportunity, notwithstanding the fixed term element of it, to have elections at another time. But it is, of course, for this House to vote for that election. But like my honourable friend, I think it is very clear that every member of this House should be voting for this election. If I just return to... I will take one more and then...
Prime Minister. The Prime Minister pledged time and time again not to call an early election. In her Easter message, she talked greatly of her Christian values. Could the Prime Minister explain, then, why she has such a loose and complicated relationship with telling the truth?
Order. The Prime Minister is perfectly well able to fend for herself, but in terms of order, what the honourable gentleman has said is a breach of it, and I must ask him. He's versatile in the use of language. He used to pen articles for newspapers. He's a journalist. Withdraw, man, and use some other formulation if you must.
I'm very happy.
Withdraw.
I'm very happy to withdraw and reformulate. Why does the Prime Minister have such a complicated and loose relationship with giving the country a clear indication of her intentions?
The Prime Minister.
To say to the honourable gentleman, I think yesterday I've given the country a very clear indication of my intentions, and if he has a little patience, he will hear the reasons why I have done that. As I was saying, the government has delivered on the priorities that I set out last year. Despite predictions of immediate financial and economic danger, since the referendum we've seen consumer confidence remain high, record numbers of jobs and economic growth that has exceeded all expectations. At the same time, we have delivered on the mandate we were handed by the referendum result by triggering Article 50 before the end of March, as we pledged to do. As a result, Britain is leaving the EU and there can be no turning back.
But doesn't it take some brass neck to call a general election when you're facing allegations of buying the last one?
I have to say that intervention was not worthy of the honourable gentleman.
Can the Prime Minister just clarify for us, does she support fixed-term parliaments?
We have a fixed-term Parliament Act that enables us to have fixed-term parliaments. I believe that at this point in time it is right for us to have this debate, to have this vote in this House, and I believe it is right for members of this House to vote, and I will explain why, for us to have a general election at this stage. No, I'm not going to take any further interventions for a while. This is a limited time debate, and honourable members wish to make their contributions. Today we face a new question. How best to secure the stability and certainty we need over the long term in order to get the right deal for Britain in Brexit negotiations and make the most of the opportunities ahead. And I've come to the conclusion that the answer to that question is to hold a general election now, in this window of opportunity before the negotiations begin. I believe it is in Britain's national interest to hold an election now. A general election is the best way to strengthen Britain's hand in the negotiations ahead, because securing the right deal for Britain is my priority, and I'm confident that we have the plan to do it. We have set out our ambition, a deep and special partnership between a strong and successful European Union and a United Kingdom that is free to chart its own way in the world. It means, just a minute, it means we will regain control of our own money, our own laws and our own borders, and we will be free to strike trade deals with old friends and new partners all around the world. I'll give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
I'm very grateful to the Prime Minister for giving way, and I can understand that she wants to give the House the opportunity to determine whether there should be an election. But if the House then determines that now is the time, why is it that the Prime Minister stands in the face of the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government that have voted for a referendum on Scotland's future? If it's right that the people here have a voice and a vote on the future of this country, why shouldn't the Scottish people be given the vote as well?
Prime Minister.
Now is the time for a general election because it will strengthen our hand in the negotiations on Brexit. Now is not the time for a second Scottish independence referendum because it will weaken our hand in negotiations on Brexit. Strength and unity with the Conservatives, division and weakness with the Scottish Nationalists. This means that we will just make a little more progress. I believe this delivers on the will of the British people, our plan for Brexit. It's the right approach for Britain, and it will deliver a more secure future for our country and a better deal for all our people. But it is clear, Mr. Speaker, just a minute, that other parties in this House have a different view about the right future for our country, while members of the other place have vowed to fight the government every step of the way. I give way to my honourable friend.
Thank my right honourable friend for giving way. The people of Rossendale and Darwen in the referendum gave her and her government a mandate to exercise Article 50. She has done that. We are now grateful to have the opportunity to strengthen the Prime Minister's hand so she can go out there and get the best possible deal for people who live in Rossendale and Darwen, our manufacturers in Rossendale and Darwen, and every family in Rossendale and Darwen.
My honourable friend is absolutely right, and we should be united in this Parliament in wanting to get that best possible deal, not just for the country as a whole, but for everybody across the whole of this country. And I commend my honourable friend for the work that he has done in Rossendale and Darwen in supporting his constituents on this. I will give way to the right honourable gentleman, and then I will make progress.
I can see how it suits the Prime Minister's purposes to make this election all about Brexit. But can she accept the possibility that it may just become a referendum on her brutal cuts, which have left older people without care, schools sending begging letters to parents, and a record number of homeless people on the streets of Greater Manchester?
Prime Minister.
Well, I have to say to the right honourable gentleman, of course, the general election, when we come into the campaign, people will be looking at a wide range of issues. They will look at the fact that pensioners are £1,250 a year better off because of the actions of the Conservative government. They will look at the fact that we have 1.8 million more children in good or outstanding schools. But if the right honourable gentleman wants to talk about impact on the economy, I suggest he searches in his memory for the time he spent as Chief Secretary to the Treasury when Labour were trashing the economy of this country and leading us to virtual bankruptcy. Mr. Speaker, no, I'm going to make some progress. Mr. Speaker, I have set out the divisions that have become clear on this issue. They can and will be used against us, weakening our hand in the negotiations to come, and we must not let that happen. I believe that at this moment of enormous national significance, there should be unity here in Westminster, not division. And that's why it's the right and responsible thing for all of us here today to vote for a general election, to make our respective cases to the country, and then to respect the result and the mandate it provides to give Britain the strongest possible hand in the negotiations to come. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
Very grateful. In the last election, the Conservatives gave a manifesto commitment to stay in the single market. Will she be withdrawing that commitment in the new manifesto? And if she does, won't that weaken her negotiating position as well as removing 2 months from the negotiation window?
Well, we gave a commitment in the last manifesto to provide the people of the United Kingdom with a vote on whether or not to leave the European Union. We gave them that vote. That was supported by Parliament. We gave them that vote, and they gave a clear message that they want the United Kingdom to leave the European Union. It's exactly what we were going to do.
Extremely grateful to the Prime Minister, and I fully support the fact that she needs a stronger hand going into the negotiations as we leave the European Union. Does she not think it perverse that some people who didn't want a referendum in the first place now want a second referendum at the very end of the procedure, just in case that the British government doesn't get a good deal from Brussels. Doesn't she believe that if we were to have that second referendum, it would deeply weaken the position of the Prime Minister in the negotiations she has with the European Union?
My honourable friend is absolutely right in his description of what would happen. And I think, for those who say they want a second referendum, actually that is denying the will of the people, because people voted for us to leave the European Union, and we are going to go out there and get the best possible deal. Waiting to hold the next election in 2020 as scheduled would mean the negotiations would reach their most difficult and sensitive stage, just as an election was looming on the horizon. A general election will provide the country with 5 years of strong and stable leadership to see us through the negotiations and ensure we're able to go on to make a success as a result. And that is crucial. That is the test. It's not solely about how we leave the European Union, but what we do with the opportunity that Brexit provides that counts. Leaving the EU offers us a unique, once-in-a-generation opportunity to shape a brighter future for Britain. We need the leadership provided by a strong and stable government to seize it. A government that has a plan for a stronger Britain, a government with the determination to see it through, and a government that will take the right long-term decisions that will deliver a more secure future for Britain. The Conservative Party I lead is determined to be that government. I give way.
Is the Prime Minister at all concerned that, having tried her best to build up a reputation for political integrity, both as Home Secretary and Prime Minister, she is now seen, after all the denials there will be a snap election, simply as a political opportunist?
I've not denied the fact that when I came into this role as Prime Minister, I was clear that what the country needed was stability, and they also needed a government that was going to show that it would deliver on the vote people had taken in the referendum on leaving the EU. We have provided that for over the last 9 months. Now it is clear to me that if we are going to have the strongest possible hand in negotiation, we should have an election now. As I've just said, leaving the election to 2020 would mean that we would be coming to the most sensitive and critical part of the negotiations in the run-up to a general election, and that would be in nobody's interest. Mr Speaker, I said that the Conservative Party that I lead is determined to be that government that has the determination to see through its plan for a stronger Britain. We're determined to provide that leadership, determined to bring stability to the United Kingdom for the long term, and that's what this election will be about. Leadership and stability. I
thank the Prime Minister for giving way. Does the Prime Minister, like me, appreciate decisiveness, and does she agree that voting yes in this motion signifies strength, whereas abstaining is a symbol of weakness?
Well, I have to say to my honourable friend, I think absolutely that voting yes is a sign of strength. I would say a little more about abstaining, but I think anybody who abstains and thinks we shouldn't have a general election presumably is endorsing the record of the Conservative government that we see. So very happy.
I'm very grateful for the Prime Minister for giving way. Would she agree with the Lord Hill, who was a commissioner in Europe, when asked in front of the Foreign Affairs Committee what the best strategy for negotiation is? His response is that we have to come together because our interlocutors will be watching this place and they will absolutely exploit any weakness in our political system.
No, my honourable friend is absolutely right, and I'm grateful to him for reminding us what Lord Hill, with his experience, said in relation to this issue. It is important that we come together, that we don't show the divisions that have been suggested in the past, and that we're able to show a strong mandate for a plan for Brexit and for making a success of that. And we're determined to bring stability to the United Kingdom for the long term, and that's what this election will be about, leadership and stability. And the decision facing the country will be clear. I will be campaigning for strong and stable leadership in the national interest with me as Prime Minister, and I will be asking for the public support to continue to deliver my plan for a stronger Britain, to lead the country through the next 5 years and to give the country the certainty and stability that we need. I give way to the Honourable Lady.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Prime Minister for giving way. On the timetable before yesterday, the Prime Minister would have concluded her negotiation by 2019. We would have gone into the general election 2020 on a year later talking about the Prime Minister's deal. That would have given the country an outlook as to what they would be voting for. The Prime Minister is asking the country to strengthen her hand. What she's actually doing, does she not agree, is asking the country to vote for a blank cheque.
No, we're not asking the country to write a blank cheque. We've been very clear about what we intend in terms of the outcome of the negotiations. I set that out in my Lancaster House speech in January. It's been set out in the White Paper. It's been set out in the Article 50 letter that when we triggered Article 50 and submitted that to the President of the European Council. But, Mr. Speaker, I say to the House that the choice before us today is clear. I've made my choice. It's to do something that runs through the veins of my party more than any other. It's a choice to trust the people. So let us vote to do that today. Let us lay out our plans for Brexit. Let us put forth our plans for the future of this great country. Let us put our fate in the hands of the people, and then let the people decide.